Chapter 3062. If you don't believe me, you can ask those people who went to the True Spill continent with me. They should have also seen the phenomenon at that time. It's only because we didn't place such a small low-level continent like the True Spill continent in our eyes that we didn't see the phenomenon. We didn't think that there were any treasures there. Every time Mo Zhuling thought of this, he was filled with endless hatred. But at that time, even if she knew that there were treasures in the True Spill continent, she still wouldn't have been able to do anything to them. Instead, she would have been killed by Yi Qianxian. But later on, if she had been able to wake up and discover something, she would have been able to borrow the power of the black fog to change the current situation. Unfortunately, it was too late to say anything now. She clenched her teeth in her heart, but on the surface she tried to control her emotions. She said, "I admit it. I did lie to you before. I wanted to use the phenomenon to make you believe that the matter at the marriage proposal banquet was caused by the people of the True Spill continent. They were deliberately trying to deal with you. But I didn't think that the phenomenon was actually true. I don't want to defend myself anymore. I only ask that after you obtain this news, you can spare me. I really can't bear it anymore." Mo Zhuling knelt on the ground as he spoke. He constantly sobbed, tears streaming down his face. Looking at his appearance, Lu Yu and the others already believed him. After all, Mo Zhuling's pitiful appearance wasn't something that an average person could bear. He couldn't help but collapse. It was normal for him to come and tell them this news and beg for mercy. Lu Yu's eyes narrowed. He looked at him and coldly said, "As long as what you say is true. Of course I won't let anyone find trouble with you." In fact, Mo Zhuling's miserable state had nothing to do with them. It was just that they didn't do anything. They weren't the ones who had dealt with Mo Zhuling. However, Lu Yu was very happy to see him beg for mercy and provide him with this information. As he thought of this, Mo Zhuling sneered inwardly. Obviously, the Lu family had believed her words. Then let them fight to the death with that bitch Luo Qingtong. This way she could sit back and reap the benefits. With that thought in mind, she stammered to Lu Yu, "Thank you, young master. I'll take my leave now." Lu Yu waved his hand nonchalantly and let her leave. After she left, Lu Yu looked at Uncle Fong and the others beside him and asked, "What do you all think?" "I think she's telling the truth. Young master, if that thing is really in the hands of that girl called Luo Qingtong, then we have to be prepared. It is said that her background is not simple. The people of the Lu family were not idle in Star City. They had already found out that there seemed to be an expert behind Luo Qingtong. It was the existence of this expert that made the people of the Star Alliance not dare to offend the people of True Spill continent. They treated them like bodhisattvas. However, they couldn't find out the identity of this expert. The people of the Star Alliance were secretive about this and didn't reveal anything. However, the people of the Lu family didn't think that this so-called expert was very powerful. Otherwise, why would they need the people of the Star Alliance to protect the people of True Spill continent? Obviously, the strength of the other party was ordinary. They didn't know if he was from the 7-star field or the 6-star field. Moreover, he was a loner with no influence. Chapter 3063. However, what they didn't know was that Yi Qianxian had been invited away by the Heavenly Dark Guard. He didn't have time to arrange anything else. What's more, there were people from the Star Alliance in the 9-star sector. Coupled with the existence of the Heavenly Capital Young Emperor token, it was enough to prevent most people from harming the True Spill continent. Who would have thought that the Lu family would find traces of the sector beast and track it all the way to the True Spill continent? When Uncle Fong and the others spoke, Lu Yu nodded and said, "That's right. I'll immediately write a letter and send it back to the family to ask them to send more people." No matter whether the news about the powerhouse was true or not, or how strong the other party was, they had to be prepared. But, Lu Yu sneered. Mo Zhuling came here with selfish motives? I think he wants that girl called Luo Qingtong to have bad luck. I heard that she's not bad looking? Lu Yu raised his eyebrows and looked at Uncle Fong and the others. Uncle Fong and the others understood and said to Lu Yu, "Yes, I heard that the girl called Luo Qingtong is very beautiful." "Young master, you mean, send someone to the True Spill continent and tell them that I want to take Luo Qingtong as my concubine? Let them think about it." Lu Yu's expression was indifferent. He had always been suspicious of Mo Zhuling's words. However, even if Mo Zhuling hadn't come, he would have thought of starting with Luo Qingtong. After all, she was the actual ruler of the True Spill continent. As long as he had her in his hands, he would be able to find the whereabouts of the sector beast. And the fastest way to control a woman was to make her his woman. At that time she would be his, so would the sector beast not be his? This way it would be simple and confidential. It was much better than directly killing his way to the other side and forcing them to hand over the sector beast. As Lu Yu thought of this, he suddenly smiled. He was confident that Luo Qingtong would agree. After all, being the concubine of the Seven Star Field's young master was not something an ordinary person could obtain. Luo Qingtong's status was so low that it was already good enough for her to be his concubine. And this was because she had a powerful expert backing her up. Otherwise, she wouldn't even be able to become a concubine. And as Lu Yu's heart was filled with pride, within the true Spill continent, Luo Qingtong didn't know what was happening in Star City. She was only surprised as she looked at the completely changed true Spill continent's mortal world in front of her. The places where the four sacred dynasties were located were all connected. The original chasm of the four dynasties had completely changed, and the territories of the four dynasties were now connected. The entire true Spill continent had been unified. And near the entrance to the true Spill continent and the hidden world, an extremely magnificent royal palace appeared in front of Luo Qingtong. The two words Tianyan were floating on it. The totem patterns on it were similar to the Luo clan's flag. Master, this is the Tianyan Holy Dynasty's royal palace. This is where the old man and the others live. This royal palace was built by the powerhouses of the four dynasties and the powerhouses of the hidden world. They said that they wanted to build the best royal palace for you and the old man. Chapter 3064. Yin Yang introduced Luo Qingtong with a smile. This palace took less than half a month to complete, but in the entire true Spill continent, and even in the entire Star Wilderness, it was comparable to the Star Alliance's headquarters. Luo Qingtong listened and smiled. At this moment, in the direction of the palace, a group of soldiers suddenly appeared and flew over. They were about to inspect their carriage and tell them to stay away from here. However, before these soldiers could get close to the carriage, the leader of the soldiers saw Luo Qingtong's face in the carriage. Then, his face instantly flushed with excitement. It's Her Royal Highness. Quick, quick. Inform His Majesty that Her Royal Highness has returned. Sound the horn. Ring the bell. His voice was hysterical and almost incoherent. The soldiers who were flying over were also stunned for a moment. Then they looked in the direction of Luo Qingtong with incomparable surprise and trembling. When they saw that familiar face, almost everyone's eyes turned red. Then they shouted with incomparable excitement. Her Royal Highness has returned. Her Royal Highness has returned. Her Royal Highness has returned. The voices of the crowd reverberated in the quiet palace and slowly drifted into the distance. Then it was as if someone had suddenly pressed a switch in the entire palace territory. In an instant, the entire silent and dark sky lit up with the lights of tens of thousands of homes. Countless soldiers, officers, attendants, and generals all woke up in an instant from the dark and quiet night. In the time it took to take a breath, countless people rushed out from all directions. Everyone looked in the direction of Luo Qingtong with excitement. At this moment, in the direction of the palace, the huge bronze door was fiercely pushed open from the inside to the outside with a bang. Then, Grandfather Luo appeared in the sight of Luo Qingtong. Half of his robe was still hanging on his body, and one of his shoes was missing. Qingtong. Seeing the figure in the carriage appear in his sight, and the person in the carriage who made him feel uneasy all this time, thinking of day and night, Grandfather Luo's eyes turned red. He rushed towards Luo Qingtong. He didn't even care about the remaining shoe. He directly lifted his leg and ran towards Luo Qingtong barefooted. Behind him, Empress Dowager Yanxi also rushed out with tears in her eyes. Qingtong. The two of them rushed towards Luo Qingtong one after another. Luo Qingtong also jumped down from the carriage and greeted them. Grandfather. Grandmother. Luo Qingtong hugged the two of them. In an instant, tears fell from Grandfather Luo's eyes. You brat. He wiped his tears and waved his hand, pretending to hit Luo Qingtong's head. Grandfather was almost worried to death when you were gone for so long. How was it outside? Did you get hurt? Did you suffer? Did you suffer? Grandfather Luo hugged Luo Qingtong, the tears in his eyes almost falling continuously. It was said that men didn't cry easily, only when they were deeply hurt. Chapter 3065. He had heard from Yin Yang and Su Xiaoxiao that Luo Qingtong had returned safe and sound. But now that he saw his granddaughter in front of him, he couldn't restrain himself. When Luo Qingtong suddenly disappeared, only the heavens knew how much pressure and worry he had felt. If it weren't for his legs being crippled, he would have left the true Spill continent to find Luo Qingtong. Now that he saw her return safe and sound, he was simply overjoyed. Luo Qingtong's heart was slightly bitter. After seeing grandfather Luo see her return, he didn't ask anything else. He only asked if she was well, if she was hurt, if she was bitter. Her heart was filled with warmth, and her eyes were slightly red. I'm not bitter. Grandfather, I'm doing very well outside. Look, my strength has increased again. She thought that grandfather Luo would be happy, but the latter's tears flowed even more fiercely. Stinky girl, you're always lying. Do you think your grandfather is stupid? Your strength has increased by so much. How could you be doing well outside? Grandfather Luo's throat choked with sobs. This stinky girl, she only told him the good news and not the bad. Luo Qingtong's expression was helpless. She really didn't feel bitter. Compared to when she was a supreme eye technique master, no one cared about her, and no one worried about her. She was alone all her life, surrounded by enemies everywhere. Now she was doing very well. However, Luo Qingtong didn't want to argue with her grandfather. Otherwise, her grandfather would fly into a rage out of humiliation. Luo Qingtong coaxed her grandfather. Okay. Grandfather, whatever you say. Come, let's go in. Grandfather, I brought back a lot of good things for you this time, Luo Qingtong said, supporting grandfather Luo as they walked inside. After crying, old master Luo felt embarrassed again. However, he couldn't bear to shake off his granddaughter, so he was immediately supported back by Luo Qingtong with an awkward expression. After they left, an earth-shattering cheer rang out from the top of the forbidden grounds of the royal palace, shaking the heavens. Ah, that's great. Her Highness has returned safely. Long live your Highness. Long live your Highness. Hearing the loud noise, the family Nangong disciples and Suiyu who came back with Luo Qingtong were all dumbfounded. They had never seen anyone with such fervent public sentiment and public opinion. Little Seven is so powerful. Suiyu and the others sighed. On the other hand, the disciples of the Nangong nobles were confused. Little Seven? But we just heard them call her Qingtong? They were naturally talking about Old Master Luo and Empress Dowager Yan Shi. Oh, that's Little Seven's real name. Suiyu and the others said carelessly, Little Seven is just her alias. What? The disciples of the Nangong nobles were shocked. Then, they stammered, is Miss Little Seven really from the Star Wilderness region, or is she from this low-level continent? Everyone was shocked. They had never thought that the girl who could call the wind and summon the rain in their Dongting region and fight against Ji Yuankuan and the others, who was also powerful and had a human martial arts realm guard, was actually from a low-level continent. Chapter 3066. While they were still in shock, Luo Qingtong had already entered the palace with Old Master Luo and the others. She dismissed the others and only stood in the main hall with Old Master Luo and Empress Dowager Yan Shi. Then, she smiled mischievously at Old Master Luo and took out the good things in her storage ring. Grandpa, Grandma, look, these are all the good things I got from the outside. Luo Qingtong had gained a lot in the Tianfeng domain this time. Although she didn't get anything in the Tianfeng inscription city because she left in a hurry. Later on, she made a lot of money in Mercenary City and the Abandoned Continent. One of these two places was where people from all walks of life gathered in the Tianfeng domain. There were things of all kinds of star domains, continents, and ranks. There were many things that were suitable for 7, 8, and 9-star domains, and Luo Qingtong had hoarded them. Later on, in the Abandoned Continent, Luo Qingtong got the things that Chu Xiaofeng and the others gave her. Those things could only be owned by the direct descendants of the Tianfeng Chu family. Every one of them was a top-grade resource in a 6-star domain. Not to mention the spiritual flowers and spiritual herbs that Luo Qingtong had taken. However, Luo Qingtong had other uses for those resources, so she didn't take them out. She had already thought about how to arrange those spiritual flowers and spiritual herbs. Moreover, in terms of cultivation resources alone, what she got from Mercenary City and Chu Xiaofeng and the others were enough. After Luo Qingtong took out all those things, Old Master Luo and Empress Dowager Yanxi were shocked. The two of them thought that the good things that Luo Qingtong said were some resources that she had obtained by chance outside. Originally, they were looking at all of this with smiles. It wasn't easy for their granddaughter to get good things outside. They didn't want Luo Qingtong's things, but since their granddaughter took them out, it was okay to praise her. Old Master Luo's heart ached. He felt that Luo Qingtong was so dangerous outside. She was a little girl, but she was suddenly teleported out. Who knew how many difficulties and hardships she had encountered and how much suffering she had suffered? She even remembered to bring them some good things. Those things might have been exchanged with her life. However, when Luo Qingtong took out all those resources and treasures, they were stunned. Tong tong tong. Old Master Luo couldn't even speak properly. He looked at the things that Luo Qingtong took out. These days, as the main leader of the Celestial Evolution Holy Dynasty, how could he not know the division of the 7th, 8th and 9th star domains treasures? However, the items that Luo Qingtong took out were of a much higher level than the items in the 7th, 8th and 9th star sectors that he knew. Their auras were also much stronger. Oh my god. Old Master Luo stared at the small mountain of items in front of him, his brain almost unable to process them. Oh my god, this is too scary. At this moment, Old Master Luo suppressed all the sadness and heartache he felt when he saw Luo Qingtong. Could it be that this girl had robbed a 6-star region's high-level continent in the outer realm? But that couldn't be right. Which high-level continent's treasury would have such a comprehensive collection of things? Not to mention that some of the items were obviously not something that could be found in a high-level continent's treasury of a 6-star domain. Chapter 3067. Could it be that his granddaughter suddenly disappeared, went on a trip to the outer region, and destroyed a top force above the 6-star region? Old Master Luo wouldn't believe it. What was his granddaughter's strength when she was taken away? Ah no, at that time she was still in a state of no strength. What was going on? Old Master Luo and Empress Dowager Yanxi were surprised. On the other hand, Luo Qingtong smiled lightly. She didn't explain too much to Old Master Luo and the others. Speaking of which, it was really too long. What's more, it was very complicated. Luo Qingtong thought for a long time but didn't know where to start. She didn't want Old Master Luo and the others to worry about her because of what happened in the Tianfeng domain. After all, once she talked about what happened in the Tianfeng domain, she couldn't avoid Yu Mingxian's pursuit. For the time being, Luo Qingtong didn't want Old Master Luo to worry about these things for her. She was used to fighting alone. She would talk about it after she solved the things over there. Old Master Luo was right about one thing. Luo Qingtong was a person who only reported the good news and not the bad. She had long been used to bearing hardships and dangers alone. And there was nothing wrong with that. It wasn't that she didn't believe in Old Master Luo and the others, nor that she thought they were too weak. It was that she had been alone for too long. Except for Yi Qianxian, who intervened in her life because of his powerful strength and forcibly integrated into her life, she couldn't refuse and could only adapt. As for the others, she didn't know how to fight together with them. She had always been alone. She could build a force, but it was too difficult for her to have a sense of teamwork and comradeship. She wasn't that kind of person at all. Old Master Luo and Empress Dowager Yanxi were also very considerate. Although they were very surprised and shocked by the origin of these things, they didn't ask if Luo Qingtong didn't want to talk about it. Luo Qingtong had suffered enough outside. They didn't want their questions to bring back those bad memories. While Grandfather Luo and Empress Dowager Yanxi were shocked, Luo Qingtong smiled mysteriously and took out the 1,000 silkworm thread she obtained from the abandoned continent. She waved it in front of Old Master Luo and said with a smile, "Grandpa, do you know about this? It can heal your leg. In the future, your legs will be the same as other people's. They won't be a burden to you anymore. Not only that, it doesn't need any recovery period. No matter how good the elixir was, even if it could restore Grandfather Luo's legs to their original state and allow him to receive the infusion of power, he still had to start cultivating from the beginning to the end. The strength of his legs would always be more or less different from the other parts of his body. This kind of difference was almost impossible to eliminate. Even though Luo Qingtong temporarily adjusted the strength of Luo's legs to be similar to the rest of his body, Luo Qingtong still couldn't control the strength of his legs. However, as one continued to improve and advance in cultivation, the difference in strength would still appear. But it was different with the 1,000 silkworm thread. The 1,000 silkworm thread would adjust its tenacity and hardness according to Grandfather Luo's strength. Chapter 3068. He stared blankly at the threads in Luo Qingtong's hands, while Empress Dowager Yanxi's face was also filled with indescribable excitement. "Qingtong, is what you said true? Your grandfather's legs are really..." Her words were trembling and her entire voice was trembling. Ever since Grandfather Luo's legs were crippled, he could still walk freely. But Empress Dowager Yanxi knew that he could no longer cultivate to improve his strength. Or rather, no matter how hard he cultivated, there was still such an obstacle and hidden danger left behind. It was a huge blow to him. Sometimes she often saw him standing alone on the city wall, looking at the soldiers in front of him with a face full of envy. Every time this happened, her heart would be especially painful. This man had been in the military all his life, and fighting was almost his instinct and all his meaning in life. But now he had returned to his prime, but he could almost no longer fight and cultivate. What kind of blow was this to him? But every time she couldn't help feeling sad and distressed, he would comfort her in turn, saying that this was also very good. At least he had enough time to accompany her to make up for the regret of not being able to be together before. But when Empress Dowager Yanxi heard these words, she felt even more sad. Because even if he could cultivate and fight, it wouldn't hinder their relationship. Grandfather Luo said this clearly because he didn't want her to feel distressed and sad. Hearing Luo Qingtong say that Grandfather Luo's legs could be saved, and at the same time his tenacity and strength were no different from before, she almost cried with joy. Old Master Luo's lips were trembling violently. He looked at Luo Qingtong and wanted to confirm with Luo Qingtong several times, but he didn't have enough courage. Instead, it was Empress Dowager Yanxi who spoke. After Empress Dowager Yanxi spoke, Luo Qingtong immediately smiled and nodded. Yes, grandmother, it's true. But I still need some time before I can treat grandfather. After all, her blood-red eyes hadn't fully recovered yet. In the face of Grandfather Luo's legs, Luo Qingtong naturally didn't want to be negligent at all. Yes, okay. Empress Dowager Yanxi immediately responded with a trembling voice. A period of time was a period of time. They had waited for so long, this little bit of time didn't make a difference. As she said this, she immediately wanted to ask Luo Qingtong how long it would take, but she heard Luo Qingtong think for a moment and say to them, about 7 days. Empress Dowager Yanxi and Grandfather Luo didn't know what to say. Was this the period of time? What was 7 days? A period? They thought it would take a year or something. From the sound of it, 7 days wasn't a big deal at all. The two of them were very excited. And Grandfather Luo Qingtong Yanxi, is Luo Qingtong's grandfather Yan's. Oh, by the way, Grandpa, Grandma, here are a few stalks of sky luo grass. Grandma's portion, you can take it now. But grandfathers, wait until I heal your legs, then take it. Luo Qingtong told the two of them, in addition to the two that you've taken, find a few absolutely loyal people to take the rest. If there are no candidates for the time being, then leave it first. Chapter 3069. Oh, Old Master Luo took the Tianluo grass in a daze. He looked at the few stalks of spiritual herbs that had a very strong aura. It was obvious that they were not ordinary spiritual herbs. He asked in a daze, Tong Tong, what are these spiritual herbs for? Luo Qingtong was rummaging through the demonic weapons she got from the Yin Demon King in her storage ring to see if there was anything suitable for Old Master Luo and Empress Dowager Yanxi. She could erase the demonic qi inside and give it to them. She said without raising her head, oh, it's the Tianluo grass from the core of the continent. It's one of the great Tao spiritual objects. After you two take it, you'll immediately get the Tianluo body and enter the Zun realm. Pfft. Old Master Luo had already put away the Tianluo grass and was sitting on a chair and drinking tea to calm himself down. After all, the shock and surprise he received today was a little too big. However, when Luo Qingtong said that, he spat out the tea in his mouth. Fortunately, Empress Dowager Yanxi dodged in time. Otherwise, she would have been sprayed all over. Old Master Luo didn't have time to apologize to his wife. He just stared at Luo Qingtong with wide eyes and said in shock, Tianluo? Tianluo grass. Great Tao spiritual object. Old Master Luo wondered if he had heard wrongly. Tianluo grass, Great Tao spiritual object. This wasn't just a name Luo Qingtong said casually or deliberately. In fact, it wasn't an ordinary Tianluo grass. It was a real heaven and earth spiritual object. Didn't you hear what Luo Qingtong said? It could immediately get the Tianluo body. Not only that, its strength could directly enter the Zun realm. Luo Qingtong gave him such a heaven and earth spiritual object so casually. Old Master Luo clutched his chest that was suffocated from shock and kept thinking. How many Tianluo grass did Luo Qingtong just give him? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, I can't count anymore. Elder Luo rubbed his dizzy head and quickly took out the sky luo grass from his storage ring and counted them again. 6. He cried out in shock. So many. When he spoke, Luo Qingtong's voice casually sounded. Yes, Grandpa, take it first. If it's not enough, I have more here. However, it's best if you choose those who are strong and talented. Only then can you maximize the benefits. Although this Tianluo grass can instantly raise one's strength to the exalted realm, that person's strength has to be close to the exalted realm. Otherwise, I'll still need some time to improve. Also, I have to leave some for Suyu and the others. Although Suyu and the others might not be able to use it. Thinking about how Su Yu and the others were sold to the Qin family of highest heaven by the people of the Dark Colors Arena, Luo Qingtong's face turned cold. She had to deal with the matter here as soon as possible and go find them. Otherwise, who knew what would happen to them over there? The people of the Dark Colors Arena were simply damned. Luo Qingtong had almost turned the group of people of the Dark Colors Arena into ashes, but she still couldn't vent her anger. Chapter 3070. His own granddaughter actually had more. Luo Qingtong spoke of such a heavenly treasure as if it were cabbage. Grandfather Luo's heart was tangled. He originally thought that these heavenly treasures were too precious and that he couldn't take so many of them. It would be better to let Luo Qingtong take them back for other purposes. But before he could even open his mouth, his granddaughter had given him a critical blow. Since his granddaughter still had more, he would take them. As Grandfather Luo thought this, he stretched out half of his hand to return some of the heavenly grass to Luo Qingtong. But at this time Luo Qingtong dropped another heavy bomb on them. That's right, Grandfather, I came back this time to upgrade the True Spill continent. I obtained the core of a high-grade continent and am preparing to upgrade the True Spill continent to a high-grade continent. At that time this place will be able to produce immortal spirit energy. That is the high-grade core of an abandoned continent. But because of some reasons, it regained its vitality. The core strength, the power of the great Tao, and the immortal spirit energy are completely ownerless. They can perfectly fit into the core of our True Spill continent. At that time I may need to go into seclusion for a period of time. Also, after the True Spill continent is upgraded, I am preparing to connect it with the Little Doe's boundary. Then you can go in and cultivate whenever you want. Inside I have placed. Luo Qingtong spoke of her plans. Grandfather Luo and Empress Dowager Yanxi were both stunned. As they listened to Luo Qingtong's words, they felt as if they were in a dream. Upgrade the True Spill continent to a high-grade continent. It was unknown how many years it would take for a continent to evolve and upgrade. And for a low-grade continent like the True Spill continent, it was impossible for it to be upgraded to a high-grade continent. But this law had been broken in front of Luo Qingtong. Not only that, but Luo Qingtong had upgraded it to a high-grade continent. There was no need for it to be upgraded to a medium-grade continent. And the core of an abandoned continent that regained its vitality, what did his granddaughter do when she went out? How could she obtain such a thing? And she could bring it back perfectly? Oh my God. Grandfather Luo and Empress Dowager Yanxi had been together for so many years that they could be considered experienced and knowledgeable. But after Luo Qingtong went out and came back, everything she did shocked them. They didn't pay attention to what Luo Qingtong said about the connection between the True Spill continent and the boundary. They only nodded in a daze. Luo Qingtong felt very helpless as she watched. It seemed that the bombs she had dropped this time were a little too big. Her grandparents couldn't take it anymore. Forget it, I'll tell them about the rest when I have the chance in the future in case they can't get over it. As Luo Qingtong thought about it, she immediately hid the demonic weapon, the Dongting region, and Chu Tiany's identity from Old Master Luo and Empress Dowager Yanxi. She didn't even mention Sui Yu's group or the people sent by the Nangong family. Of Luo O Luo's with that in mind, Luo Qingtong went to rest. Chapter 3071. At the same time in Star City, the people of the Lu family had also rushed over after receiving the news from Lu Yu. The group of elders and strong cultivators of the Lu family quietly entered the mansion of the Lu family without alerting anyone. Are you sure the sector beast is in the hands of the girl named Luo Qingtong? An elder of the Lu family asked in a deep voice. He was at the 5th level of the human martial realm. In the Lu family he was one of the masters second only to the head of the family. He was very powerful. This time, almost all the people who were at the same level as him had come to the Star Wilderness. The news of the sector beast was very precious. They didn't want to miss any opportunity this time. Therefore, except for the head of the family, all the elders and elites were sent out. At the same time in the Star Wilderness, a large number of people of the Lu family were stationed on a remote abandoned continent next to Star City. They were waiting for the news to be confirmed before making a move. As soon as he spoke, Lu Yu's voice was heard. Not yet, but there is an 80% chance it is her. As he said this, he immediately told them what Mo Zhuling had said and the information they had found. Even if it isn't her, it definitely has something to do with her. Moreover, through her identity we can easily find out who has the sector beast. Lu Yu said. In fact, he didn't completely believe Mo Zhuling. But Luo Qingtong was indeed the best breakthrough. No matter whether she had the sector beast or not, she was the actual ruler of the True Spill continent. Hearing his words, all the elders of the Lu family nodded and said in a deep voice, "Yes, this girl named Luo Qingtong is indeed the best breakthrough. However, even so, young master, your decision to take her as a concubine was a bit too hasty. A girl from such a low-level continent, even if her status is slightly higher than people from other low-level continents, is still a low-level person. If you marry into our Lu family, it will inevitably stain our bloodline." The elder of the Lu family who spoke first said. They knew that Lu Yu had said that he wanted to marry Mo Zhuling. However, that was just a casual remark. It wasn't like he was serious about marrying her. As for this Luo Qingtong, if he wanted to get the whereabouts of the sector beast out of her, he would have to marry her for real. At that time, the Lu family would have a stain on their reputation. The elder of the Lu family was extremely unwilling. In his opinion, a lowly person from a low-level continent did not even have the qualifications to be their maidservant. Not to mention marrying Lu Yu as a concubine. When he spoke, the elders of the Lu family all nodded in agreement. According to their thoughts, since they knew that there were indeed sector beasts in the True Spill continent, then they might as well kill their way in. Whether or not anyone obtained the sector beasts, all they had to do was force them to hand it over. If someone had formed a contract with him, he would just have to kill the other party. That Luo Qingtong might be backed by a 6-star field or a 7-star field's individual practitioner. If possible, I don't want to use force to settle this. The most important thing is that we are too big of a target. If someone notices what we are doing and finds out about the existence of sector beasts, we will be in big trouble. Lu Yu said. She is just a concubine. If you don't like her, you can just deal with her after you get the sector beast. Lu Yu didn't think much of it. She was just a girl from a low-level continent. A girl like Mo Zhuling from the Star Alliance, he would just throw her away after using her. He would just have to deal with her in the same way. He could even have a taste of her. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.